DreAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of wait for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques, all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called work on your game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is you get one sentence. Before we get into this, let me remind everybody, I send out a text message every day, guaranteed to have you focused, sharp, and on point. Every week does the same thing. One of them is called the daily motivation, the other one's called the Monday motivation. Guess which is which? You can get these texts. All you got to do is be a member of my text community. Text me at my number to join. My number is 305-384-6894. It is free to join the text community. Once you text me, we'll tell you what your options are for how often you like to hear from us and get our messages. Again, that number is down below in the description. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. That is the only place that I do any coaching. Any of you would like to work with me directly, be coached by me, there is one way to do it and one way only. That is by being in Work on Your Game University. The link to the university is down below in the description here. That is the place where we help people through our 4-part framework, which is mindset, strategy, systems, and accountability for your business and your life. We focus on personal and professional development. There is not limited to just one, because many of the things that happen in our businesses bleed out into our lives. Many of the things that happen in our lives bleed into our businesses. So we're not drawing a line of separation between the two. Again, that link is down below in the description as well. So with that out the way, let's get into today's topic, which is, again, you get one sentence. Now, where did this topic come from and why am I talking about this? I'm on the alumni email list for my college, and every month they send out just an alumni email that basically gives you a couple updates, and it'll say something like, here's some graduate who got a new job, or here's somebody who graduated here who maybe has written a book, or here's how one graduate has come back and they are volunteering at the campus, or they ask people to come volunteer, or here's why you should join our alumni association and give money every month, or stuff like that. Or it'll be like something that's happening currently on campus, or some new person got promoted to dean of students, or this normal regular boilerplate stuff that happens on campus. They're just keeping you updated, trying to keep people tapped in, because biggest thing colleges want, especially when you're an alumni, is they want you to give money to the university. But there's one section of this email that I always notice, and it's called In Memoriam. And In Memoriam is a listing of the people who died, at least the ones they know about, who are graduates of the college who passed away. And this all gets summarized, at least in this email. It's basically one sentence. So it'll be the name of the person, it'll be the year that they graduated from the college, and then it will say when they died, what they passed away on April 27th, whatever year. That's pretty much what it gets. They summarize this person's entire existence down to one sentence. And I was looking at the latest one. There was a person who, by calculation, given the year, they say the year they graduated, not the year they born, the year they graduated. So you don't know how old somebody was when they graduated, but assuming they were 22-ish, this person had died somewhere in their mid-60s. And the note about them in this email summarized 65, 66 years of life in one line, one sentence. And that's what I'm talking about here. I'm drawing a parallel between that and you, because they're going to do the same thing to you. If you happen to go to a college where they happen to find out that you died, they're going to do the same thing to you. You get one sentence. That's all you get. Today's masterclass, though I understand that, yes, there'll be other celebrations of your death besides just in your college's email. Today's masterclass is, most importantly, a wake-up call for everyone about the shortness of time which we have and what we need to do with and about it. That's what this is about. Point number one. Today's topic, once again, is you get one sentence. Number one, the more time that has passed after you die, the less the details of your life will matter. Let me repeat this, because this is very important. The more time that passes after you die, the less the details of your life will matter to anyone. The only things that will matter are the headlines of your life. You get it when I say headlines? Those headlines get shorter and shorter the more time has passed since you've been gone. Sure, your family and close friends and your old coworkers, they're going to have a funeral and a wake and events in your memory, whatever it's going to be, to remember you and celebrate your life and all of that. Day of your funeral, your best friends are going to be asking, where are we going for lunch? Because they're hungry. This is how quickly you get forgotten, folks. When you're in that casket or in that urn or whatever happens to your body, you get forgotten pretty quickly, and life goes on. Life keeps going whether you are alive or not. This applies to all of us. And guess what? There are people you know who have died. And did you stop living because they died? No, you had to keep going. The bills are still due. Our job's still got to get done. This is life just goes on. And this is about you coming to grips with and appreciating the shortness of life. And therefore, hopefully, it creates some urgency within you to use this little bit of time that you have, because as soon as it's over, it's like everything about you is over. All the stuff, all the people who you think are thinking about you, caring about you, talking about you, reaching out to you, reading you, all that stuff, a lot of it is going to go away, and it's going to go away pretty fast. Now, look, maybe you create a lot of content, and people will still be consuming your stuff after you die. Yes, but understand, everybody has to move on. Somehow, some way, they got to move on, even if it means moving on to using your stuff again and repurposing it for other purposes after you're gone. But the headlines of your life are the only thing that's going to matter. The details won't matter. All the stuff that you were about to do, could have do, should have did, would have did, none of that will matter. Nobody's even going to know. Only person who knows what you could have did is you. Ever thought about that? You're the only one who knows. Everybody else forgot. Now, again, the day of your funeral, your best friends are going to say, where are we going for lunch? I'm hungry. Not that they're going to completely forget you by the end of the day, but they are hungry and they got to go eat lunch. The whole point being, life goes on with or without you. Your life is only super important, honestly, to you. Only person in the world to whom your life is super important is you. Everybody else could kind of, they gotta put their life in the number one slot, not yours, because they all gotta live theirs. This includes your kids, this includes your spouse, includes your best friends, people who spend time with you every day. They still gotta prioritize their lives when yours is done. Just the truth, folks. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is you get one sentence. Number 2. Now, there are a couple ways that you can respond to this realization. You could look at it with a fatalistic mindset, which says that all the stuff that you're doing now is all for naught and completely useless, since one day it will end and it's not going to matter anymore anyway. At least most of the details won't matter anymore. You could look at things this way. You have this choice. And this is the way many people live their lives. Well, I'm going to be dead one day anyway, so what does it matter? These people are often known as losers, underachievers, the mediocre. These are people at the bottom of the pyramid, holding up the pyramid for the winners up at the top. That's who they are. They spend their entire lives not striving for nor achieving much, because they look at it as if, well, it's all a waste of time and effort anyway. You have this as an option. I'm laying out your options. That's what I do here on this show and in my material. I tell you what your options are. You can choose whichever choice you want. I'm just laying them out and letting you know what your choices are. You got to make the choice, though, because you're the one who has to live with it, not me. Okay, so that's one option. You do have this choice. I would suggest, however, that you look at the same reality through a different lens. That would be one of urgency and excitement, because you have such a short time, and because it will disappear with you when you're gone, you might as well make the most of the opportunity that you do have while you are here. I mean, you might as well. Why not? If you're here, you might as well make the most of it. Since you got to be here, can't wait to begin, can't wait to get to it, can't wait to achieve as much as you can, can't wait to be more urgent and achieve more in your life, since this time is so short. Same reality as the fatalistic mindset, just a different paradigm, just a different way of looking at the exact same reality. Because reality is just reality. All right, there's no different. There are different realities because we can each create different realities in our minds, but there is one reality that we all got to deal with, is that we're all going to die. All right, I don't care how you choose to look at things. Everybody's going to die at some point, at least according to current science. Everybody's going to die. Now, you can have a different way of looking at that death, and I just laid out 2 choices for you. This means all the stuff that you've been planning on doing, all the stuff that you're going to do when XYZ happens, or all the stuff you would do if ABC was in place. If things were different in your life, well, when things change, when the kids get out of school, if you had more money, et cetera, all those when if things that you would do, could do, should do, you need to think about how you will make things different in your life so that you can actually do those things, instead of putting them off for later and later and later until there is no later and they never happen. And this is one of the tragedies of human life. And this is a tragedy that probably every person can probably think of, because everybody has something, because there's no perfect scenarios in life. There are only trade-offs, and no human being is perfect. So we all have these trade-offs. There are some humans who say, I wish I had worked harder on this particular aspect of my career, because I could have achieved more and I would have had more accomplishments, and it would have created more, who knows, more ROI for me, whatever that means for you, happiness, success, money, etc. And they didn't do it. And they have that regret. There are other people who say, man, I worked so hard, I put so much into my career, I didn't spend enough time with my loved ones, I wish I had done that instead. They have that regret. There are people who have other things. What's one of the things right now that you feel like you're not doing as much as you could, and if you passed away tomorrow, you would have to die knowing that you didn't do as much as you could in that particular area? What is that for you? Everybody has at least one. There's no human being that has zero. Everybody has at least one. Why? Because there are no perfect scenarios. There are only trade-offs. So everyone has something in which they have made a trade-off. Because I'm doing this, I'm not doing that. Also known as an opportunity cost. No one is devoid of this. So you need to decide what opportunity cost you're okay with, and what are you going to get in exchange for that cost, and you better make sure you get it. You're not going to spend as much time with your family because you want to build your career? Okay, then that career better get built. You're not going to spend as much time on your career because you want to spend time with your family? Okay, then that time better get spent. So if you're deciding to make this trade-off, then that trade-off better be worth it. Are you doing the things to make that trade-off worth it? Yes or no? This is a yes or no, black and white, binary question. Are you doing it? So if you say you're trading your family time for career time, then your career better look the way it's supposed to look, given that you're putting all your resources into it. Same thing, vice versa, with your family or any other area of your life. It could be a micro level, a micro area of one of these. Maybe it's with a specific child or a specific significant other or a specific area of your business or career or whatever it's going to be. But you got to stop putting things off until later, because eventually for every human being, there is no later. And again, this is not subjective. This applies to everybody. Eventually, for every single one of us, there is no later. And either it happened or it didn't. This is a good thought to remind yourself of on a daily basis, not just every once in a while. The more often you can remind yourself of this, what I believe will happen, and we're each wired differently, but here's what I'm going to theorize would happen if you reminded yourself of this more often. You would have more pep in your step. You would have more urgency. You would get less bogged down in less nonsense, day-to-day nonsense that doesn't really matter in the big picture. You would focus more on the big picture of where you're trying to go. You would vibrate on a higher frequency, simply because you're focusing on higher frequency things and higher frequency thoughts. And this vibration is a real thing. That would attract to you people who are on that frequency, things and opportunities that are on that frequency. And it would change your life on a holistic level and on a qualitative level, because you're thinking on a higher level. You're thinking on a higher plane. If you started focusing on, hey, what's the big picture here? And how do I make sure I make this big picture look as good as it can, just in case today's the last day I get to work on it? Let me repeat that question. What's the big picture here? And how do I make sure I make this picture look as good as it can, just in case this is my last day to work on it? Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is you get one sentence. Number 3. This is all about putting yourself in an offensive rather than defensive mindset. Offensive means you are moving towards and going towards and using, creating initiative to make circumstances the way that you want them to be. Whereas defense is you're back on your heels and you're kind of being pushed around, and you are having the terms of life dictated to you by life itself rather than you dictating terms. I'd rather you be on offense than be on defense. There is a book titled Power versus Force, written by an author by the name of David Hawkins. I have yet to read this book, but I've heard many good things about it. And one part of the book, at least from what was summarized to me, it talks about the level of consciousness that most human beings live with, and for the most part, stay with their entire lives. They never escape past a certain level of consciousness, because there are different levels of consciousness. There's a really high level of frequency, like the Buddhist monks live at, and there's a low vibration of frequency, like some person who's not doing much and is pretty mediocre at best. They have a different frequency. And the lowest levels are people who are living in a space of shame, guilt, fear, and anger. Those are the lowest levels of consciousness at which someone can live, at least according to this author, David Hawkins. And I agree with this. Shame, guilt, fear, and anger are low frequency level energies. Now, is there Is there value to be gotten from fear? Yeah, because sometimes fear can get you away from a bear that's trying to kill you. And anger can be channeled into a proper type of energy that can move you to perform at a really high level, at least in short bursts. But you don't want to live in these spaces. You can't live your life in anger. I could be angry for 20 minutes to score 30 points in a basketball game. I want to live my life angry. All right, that's not a good energy to walk around with. It can actually create more problems than it solves. In my experience, most people live their lives mired in fear, not anger, but fear, because anger is often a sub result of fear. But many people live their lives just straight up fear and make most of their decisions and take most of their actions based on that fear and their attempt to play defense against the fear. In other words, they're afraid of something and they're trying to defend themselves from the thing that they're afraid of. They live their whole lives and they make all their decisions based on that fear. How do I stay away from that thing that I'm afraid of? This is how most people live. And again, fear is a extremely low level of consciousness. And when you're on that low frequency of that low vibration of fear, it never leads to abundance. I was going to say rarely, but the more accurate thing is never. An energy of fear never leads to abundance. Can anyone here tell me any time that fearfulness led you to abundance? You can't. It doesn't happen. So it's a trick question. Now, while I'm sure Dr. Hawkins in his book explains this concept in much more depth than I'm giving it here in this point, what I want you to understand is that by putting yourself in a mindset of playing life on offense, you are no longer focused on fear, because you can't be fearful and play offense. You gotta pick one. You cannot be fearful and play offense in life. When you're fearful, you're on defense. So when you start putting yourself on offense, you lose the focus of the fear. You start focusing on where you're going and not on protecting yourself from something. And the longer you stay out of that fear, even if you do it in short bursts, the easier it is to stay away from it permanently. Remember reading, was I reading this? No, this was something I heard 50 Cent say in an interview that he did. And those of you know 50 Cent, most of you know who 50 Cent is. So his story, his backstory is that his first album was about to come out. He got shot 9 times, damn near died, came back from the death, finally recuperated, took him a couple years, finally put his new album out. It's called Get Rich or Die Trying. He sold a bunch of records, made a bunch of money, and 50 Cent became 50 Cent. And 50 tells the story of how after he got shot, so it was clear that he had survived and he was going to live, but he was dropped from his record label. There was nothing good happening in his life other than the fact that he had survived death. But other than that, he didn't really have much going on. And 50 talked about how he was still afraid. After he got shot, he was very afraid because he had just gotten shot 9 times. There were very few people who were willing to ride with him because like it was a target on his back. And he was going to have to go back to his neighborhood. He didn't have anywhere else to go. And he was concerned that the people who tried to kill him, realizing that they had not finished the job, would try to finish the job and kill him. So he had a lot of fear inside of him. And he had to, and it was 2 things. He had to make a decision. I'll tell you this part first. And this is something I heard him say multiple times. Is like one of his mantras. He says, when something like that happens to you, a traumatic situation that could put you in a high level of fear, you have 2 choices. You could either allow the fear to consume you and you can live the rest of your life fearfully, which is what a lot of people do when something traumatic happens to them, or you can completely drop the fear and start playing life on offense, because knowing that you have survived that traumatic situation, you have nothing to be afraid of ever again. And 50 chose option B. He chose to play life on offense. And if you listen to 50 Cent's music, I think you can agree. All right, he plays life on offense. I know it's just music, but there's only so many things you can say in a song that aren't really somehow in your head. I believe a good amount of that is how he actually thinks. Now, again, it's played up for dramatic theater, 100%. But you got to have some of that in your head in order for it to come out of your mouth. As I've said to you many times, you want to know how somebody's thinking, listen to them talk. Are they telling you a good amount of what their thoughts are? Now, I bring all that up when it comes to 50 Cent. I bring all that up when it comes to 50 Cent because another thing is in his book, The 50th Law, he talks about that. Getting out of that mindset of fear, and again, starting to play life on offense. And a particular anecdote that he talked about, that when he came back to his neighborhood, he was still in fear, and he was worried that somebody would try to come kill him and finish the job, because looked like somebody had gotten paid to kill 50 Cent, but they failed to kill him, so they had to finish the job that they had gotten paid to do. And 50 said the only time that he didn't feel fearful when he went back to his neighborhood was when he and the few friends who did decide to stick by him, when he and those few friends went looking on an offensive mission, so to speak, they went looking for the guy who they believed was responsible for the shooting. So the only time he didn't feel fearful when he was out looking for that guy, when he was on a scouting mission looking for the guy who shot him, because he was on offense at that point, because he had his gun, he was going to kill that guy. But other than that, he always felt fearful because he was back on his heels and wondering, hey, they might come get me. But when he put himself in the mode of, I'm going to go get them, the fear disappeared. And the point that I'm making here is not that you need to go out and shoot anybody or get shot, but when you put yourself in that offensive mindset, the more often you're able to do it, the less you feel comfortable in that state of fear. And the more often you put yourself in that offensive mindset, the more the offensive mindset starts to feel normal, to the point that it becomes your normal habit. And now you don't have to think about fear anymore because you're no longer in that mindset. The habit just disappears. We all know how habits work, right? We know how behavior works. The more you do it, the more it becomes a habit. And unless you do it, you extinguish a habit. You put attention and focus on something, it grows. You ignore something, it disappears, it atrophies and goes away. This applies to fear the same way it applies to fear in offense, the same way it applies to anything else that you do. Just this change alone can create a lot of difference in your life. Let's recap today's class, which is you get one sentence. Again, I'm thinking about this from the emails that I get from my college alumni who always mention the people who died and they summarize their life in one sentence. Point number one, the more time that has passed after you died, the less the details will matter. Anything you didn't do, nobody will ever know because they will die in your brain. Nobody will know what you didn't do. All that's going to matter is the headlines of your life, and those even get shorter the longer you go. And the day of your funeral, your best friends are going to be asking, where are we going for lunch? The whole point is life is short, and when it's over, for the most part, all your stuff that you got going on, all your shit is over. Point number two. Now, there are a couple different ways you look at this. You look at this fatalistically, like, oh, life is complete waste because it's going to end one day and it'll all be over. Or you look at it as, well, let me get urgent because it's going to end one day and it'll all be over. All right, same reality. It's a different choice of which paradigm you want to pick. And number three, this is all about putting yourself in an offensive rather than a defensive mindset. Most people live their lives in a state of fear with a very low vibration, very low frequency, low level of consciousness. This is the reason why many people never meet abundance in their lives, because they are so focused on fear. Fear and abundance do not mix. They are oil and water. You have to pick one, folks. You either want to be abundant or you want to be fearful, but you cannot be both at the same time. You got to put yourself in a mindset of playing life on offense. As soon as you put yourself in an offensive mindset, you can't focus on fear. You cannot play offense and be fearful at the same time. It's impossible. You have to pick one. When you put yourself in an offensive mindset, the fear disappears. And the more often you put yourself in that offensive mindset, like 50 Cent did when he was looking for the guys who had shot him so he could shoot them, you no longer connect with the fear because you're no longer in that mindset. And the less often you get in it, the more it atrophies and dies away. So you never know what that fear, you don't know what that energy is like anymore. You just extirpate it from your life. All that said, folks, text me, see you in my text community. My number is 305-384-6894 and workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where you can work with me directly. It's the only place to work with me directly. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Link is down below in the description along with my number, and work on your game. Dre